You're good to go.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Public Safety Director Ken Ferranti, and we're here tonight for another in a series of public meetings regarding the Hoboken Municipal Complex. And tonight we're talking from the public safety end. With me to my right in the middle, to your left, is our Police Chief, Stephen Aguiar, and far right is our Fire Chief, Anton Peskins. I was the police chief in the city of Hoboken from 2014 through 2021, and before that, for 2 years, I was the OEM coordinator for the city. So tonight, why are we here? We want to talk about our current state of our critical infrastructure and our facilities of our police department, fire department, and our OEM, and give you a history and a little background of where we've been over the last 10 years, where we are today, and then what we're doing to move in the future to increase the proficiencies and bring a top-notch public safety operation to the city of Hoboken with the new complex. RJ, if you want to go to the slides. If you can go to one with the three pictures, we'll be good to go there. Okay, so some of you hear about the municipal complex and where we're moving from. You hear about the municipal garage, you hear about the police headquarters, you hear about fire headquarters. You may not know exactly where those buildings are, what they look like, the history of them. So we have these three pictures here tonight. When you look in the top left corner, that is our municipal garage. That is where our environmental services work. That's the repairs for our police vehicles. It's where we store our garbage trucks, our large city vehicles. It's also where we store OEM equipment. So this is a building that was opened and built in 1979. And we saw in 2012, during Hurricane Superstorm Sandy, that area was in 6 feet of water. And it destroyed a lot of equipment, a lot of assets for the city. And it showed deficiency, which were deficiencies statewide of where OEM headquarters are housed and where storage is. And there was one storage bin that was actually on the west side of that building on the Willow Avenue side, where a lot of the OEM equipment became under floodwaters. And one of the main reasons we're here with a possibility of a multi-use complex is there was an agreement that was passed by multiple city councils through multiple agreements that creates the need for a new Department of Public Works garage moving from that location of Observer and Willow Avenue. When you look to the right, that is the current fire headquarters located at 201 Jefferson Street. This is a building that was built in 1907. And you see the two doors and the ports for where fire engines come out. When this was initially built, that was built for horse-drawn fire services. So fire equipment and hoses and ladders that were drawn out by horses, not the large fire engines that we need today. Again, it's a 1907 building, so 115 years. It is in no way at all ADA compliant. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. And there's no opportunity to even make the upgrades that would make it ADA compliant. Again, we're talking about a 115-year-old building for our fire headquarters. And when you look to the bottom left, that is our police headquarters at One Police Plaza, which sits at 106 Hudson Street. This is a building that was built in the early 1970s and was initially the International Longshoremen Association's medical arts building. So what happened in 1993 was a medical arts building was then transformed and tried to be spec'd out to be a police headquarters. And while it seemed very new at the time, compared to where the old police headquarters was in the basement of City Hall, it was still trying to make a police headquarters out of a medical arts building. When we opened that building on June 11th, 1993, we had one female police officer in Karen DeMondi. Today we have 14. And because of the shortage of the amenities, which bring with it, made for an equitable workforce of men and women, we've had to lose our training site on-site for the police headquarters, which has had to become a second female locker room. You're going to hear tonight many of the upgrades that are so needed because there have been hundreds of thousands of dollars annually poured into the building for HVAC upgrades, IT upgrades, computer servers, phone lines, and the building was outdated a couple of years after opening as a police headquarters. So you're going to get a lot of that tonight, and you're going to learn why our police department was unable to become accredited back in the early 2000s, not because of the type of services we had of the men and women of police headquarters, but because of the way the building was built, unable to have a sally port. Later, Chief Aguilar will discuss what a sally port is, which safely brings people in and out of a police headquarters. RJ, if you go to the next slide. So we first start with our existing conditions at the Municipal Garage at 256 Observer Highway in Willow. Again, it's a 43-year-old building. Now, we bring it in tonight because where do we have emergency response from? Our OEM, our Office of Emergency Management, which is headlined by our OEM coordinator, Will Montanez, and some dozen deputies. One of the main things they do in OEM operations is when we get into winter and do snow plowing operations. The snow plowing operations are done out of that building. There is no site there to have a conference room or any place for planning of the routes, the shifts of the men and women that do the plowing. Basically, the meetings happen right in a garage setting. There are no employee amenities there. There's insufficient lockers. There are no female locker room there. There's no break room. There's no parking. So many times people are using cubicles, the garage area, hallways as these meeting places or these rest areas, which is totally insufficient and not good for the men and women that are trying to keep our city safe during any type of storms. Another thing that with OEM operations, this building does not contain an emergency operations center. In the 2012 Superstorm Sandy review, Governor Christie's office did a review of the 7 cities that were hardest hit by Sandy. What they learned and brought to us a year later, they had met with then Mayor Dawn Zimmer, Resiliency Officer Caleb Stratton, who's our Assistant BA now, and myself as OEM coordinator, and they said they saw statewide OEM needs operation centers to function in the city. Well, because we're still trying to operate out of this building, we still do not have that in place. A new facility is going to bring a state-of-the-art facility that's going to make it so much safer for our residents, visitors, and businesses of Hoboken. If you go to the next page. Because of it being an old building, 43 years old, there's several structural issues that are coming into play. One, it would cost millions to make those repairs. Two, the building needs to be out of there by 2024. So we're in a place of need that within 2 years, there needs to be a DPW site where OEM will also work out of moving to a different area in Hoboken. One of the major building system deficiencies we've talked about, a total new vehicle exhaust system that's going to make it so much safer for our employees when they're dealing with an overnight plowing situation, the repairs of vehicles. So that's one of the key things that's going to come moving from this site. The county OEM, which also was built after Sandy, sits at the Janot Center in Kearney. There's an emergency operations center there that puts all the major executives in a room with TVs, with computers, with dispatching services, with mapping services. That is what we're going to bring to Hoboken. So on a smaller scale, when we have a Hoboken-only emergency, it's going to be done in a way that's going to be so much more proficient than trying to have meetings in a garage. Go to the next page, please. We put some pictures for you to see regarding the current issues at the garage. We go to the next one. You see the building systems and health and safety. Very archaic structures. You look at the second picture up top left. That's the IT panels, the phone panels, and electronic boards. Not a safe area for that to be done. It'll be in such a more condensed way so that we can have the IT upgrade. You cannot do IT upgrades in that building with that area like that. We go to the next page. You know, with the future needs, the larger modern facility is going to give us 95,000 plus square feet of space. And it's going to be a safe working environment, which is the most important thing for our men and women that are going to be working into this division. And again, it's a site where OEM will now actually have offices and command centers and have much larger operations center to plan plowing, storm situations in responses to hurricanes, which we know by climate change, it is happening. It's not If it'll happen again, it's more of a when, where 20-year storms have become 10-year storms, 10-year storms have become 5-year storms. So we need to be ready for the next 50 to 100 years, not just hoping to get past the next storm. Go to the next page. We're going to start talking about the fire headquarters deficiencies. Again, this is 201 Jefferson Street in that old building. The main thing I always hear of Chief Peskins is it not being ADA compliant and no way to bring it to a state of being ADA compliant because of the age of the building. So I'm going to turn to Chief Peskins to discuss much further of what he and his firefighters live through daily.
Thank you, Ken. Hello, everybody. I want to talk a little about the fire headquarters located at 201 Jefferson Street. As was stated, it was constructed in 1915. It's currently 107 years old. And the facility does not meet current needs or modern standards, provides no room for expansion, which is my most pressing need, I believe. And with the growing population in Hoboken, I foresee that we will be needing additional fire companies, maybe not today, but somewhere in the future, we're going to have to grow our department to meet the growing population needs. I have several building issues. Right from the start, the building is 8,400 square feet. It's grossly undersized for modern fire apparatus. Diesel fire apparatus are much larger. I cannot physically fit a ladder truck at fire headquarters. It's tough right now to even squeeze the larger pumpers. Pumpers are what deliver water at fires. Ladders carry ladders and tools. But even the pumpers right now, as built, don't fit in fire headquarters. So it's not available as an option for us, anything other than a large SUV or storage. And as stated, the building is not ADA compliant, and my fire prevention bureau is located on the 3rd floor. Any person that comes to fire headquarters for a permit or whatever you need to access fire prevention for, you have to navigate a narrow, dark staircase that winds. It's just dangerous on many levels for any person with special needs. We actually meet people down at grade level. A firefighter will then carry paperwork up. It'll be processed and carried right down. But the non-ADA compliant thing is a pressing issue, I would state. Another thing is we cannot currently maintain our large diesel apparatus at fire headquarters. Whenever light maintenance is needed or required on our fire trucks, we have to pull them onto 2nd Street, where our mechanic will tilt the cab, change the oil, change a light bulb, change a windshield wiper, right in the public walkway. It's dangerous to the public, it's dangerous to my mechanic, and it's not the most efficient way to do business. Recently, my roof started leaking at fire headquarters, and that's just one of them.
If you just go to next slide, Ajay.
Cascading chain of events. It's like one thing after another. It's not electric issues, it's plumbing issues. It's not plumbing, it's IT. It's not, now I have a roof leak. And of all places for that roof to leak is directly over my communication center. So within the last 5 years, we've spent upwards to $400,000 upgrading our communications. And now I have water leaking above it. I have tarps spread out over my computers and my voice activated systems. And we're stomping out fires daily at fire headquarters just to maintain what we have. Flood risk. I was physically in the building during Hurricane Sandy. I watched the flood waters fill the basement, rise up, take out our hazmat rig. I had 3 feet of water at grade level in fire headquarters. And we're still struggling to recover from that. It wiped out all the electric in the basement, wiped out all our pumps, wiped out all plumbing, everything just was destroyed. We've limped back, we're now functioning, but we installed check valves to physically stop the sewage, the sewers from backing up onto our apparatus floor and up through our toilet bowl at grade level. The only drawback of that is when the check valves activate, we can't evacuate the soil water that we're producing. So the building is non-usable when the check valves are engaged, but we're also not sweeping and mopping and getting rid of raw sewage that's laying all over our apparatus floor. There's no fire suppression system. There's no sprinkler system in the building. My HVAC system is non-existent. I have 13 window units cooling my structure during the summertime, and it really taxes my electric system. It's hot to the touch, my wires are in the summertime, but there's really no other way of cooling my facility. And there is a long-term historic upgrade plan in place. It would cost upwards of $12 million just to bring my building back to standards established back in 1907. It would be nice, it would be new, but it would still be very old and very small. So I can't press the importance enough. I can't, we need a new facility, and I'm hoping we can get this done. Thank you.
If you go to the future needs, there we go. So we talk about the future needs. One I want to really focus on before I'll turn back to Chief Peskin. Currently, when we go about dispatching communication centers, Hoboken Police Department has a communication center here where we utilize 2 to 3 dispatchers at a time. They will be the ones that take the phone calls and dispatch police officers to scenes. Usually we annually have about 100,000 calls for service per year, about 200 to 300, ranging from 2 to 250 during the week to 300 on weekends. Fire has their own dispatching system in that headquarters building, 115-year-old building, with 2 fire dispatchers working 24-hour dates. We also have our 911 system is brought in out of New Brunswick. So when someone in Hoboken calls 911, the call actually goes to New Brunswick, and depending if it's an EMS, PD, or a fire issue, that 911 dispatch will either contact our police, fire, EMS, or connect that caller to us. And OEM, basically their communication center is wherever Sergeant Martinez is in his command vehicle with his handy-talkie radio. That is not a sufficient way or proficient way to run communications for public safety. They all meet standard. We have some of the top equipment for PD and FD, but there is always delays because we're in 4 different areas. So the number one thing I think in the future needs, it's going to be such a great advancement, is consolidating dispatching. So we will have a command center at the new site that will have police dispatchers, fire dispatchers, 911 operators, OEM, EMS, all in the same room. So when there's the daily emergency, the small situation, or the large scale situation or planned event, all of that's going to be done out of one room, which is going to reduce response times even better than they are now, and increase communication so that the top line dispatchers and the right type of dispatcher that needs to be talking to a caller and needs to be dispatching either police, fire, EMS will be doing that. As far as future needs, anything you want to add with that in that time?
Just to pick up on the communication center, just the shared services. I mean, we're doing the best with what we have right now. We have state-of-the-art equipment, 2 dispatchers working 24-hour shifts. Constantly, I mean, recently I lost comms north of 12th Street, and it was just challenging, to say the least. I had the vendor in, it was 24 hours where we were working off handy talkies. Combining the services would just make sense.
If we want to go to our police headquarters and our current existing challenges and conditions, I turn to Chief Agia.
Good evening, everybody. Currently, 106 Hudson Street sits on a lot that's about 34,000 square feet. It consists of a building, which is 22,000 square feet, and a parking lot, which is about 12,000, where we use for multi-purpose use for personal vehicles, along with our bigger trucks that don't fit into a garage space currently, which includes some trailers, and our parking lot also houses some storage containers that has a lot of our property and existing equipment that does not fit in our current building as it stands. We have several key challenges. Our office and storage space does not meet our current demand. We crammed several officers into office spaces in order to consolidate other rooms for storage. Our arrestee and prisoner processing areas are insufficient, and we don't have a sally port, and I'll explain what a sally port is in a second. It's just a secure entrance garage so they can safely bring in prisoners away from the public. Currently, right now, anybody who's been to police headquarters knows that There's only one way in to the front of headquarters, and that is where we escort our prisoners in when they have to be brought in, and there could be a number of visitors or somebody else, a victim or a witness that is standing in our lobby, and here comes an actor being brought in by police escort. And currently, right now, our supervisors have to manage the entrance and escorting of those prisoners into headquarters safely without there being a negative interaction. Our main lobby is insufficient for public access to services as well. Currently, you walk into a small lobby, talk to through a intercom system in order to get a police service, which you have to remain outside because we need to make that lobby safe in case we do need to bring somebody into that lobby. And it's just insufficient to be able to just go to a service that is commonly used, like our records bureau. Specifically because where it's positioned within the department, and there's nowhere to move that currently. There's no emergency operations center, like the director had said. We don't have a meeting room any longer. We currently use all our space as multi-use space. Our meeting room where we muster just before we head out to our patrols currently is now being used for processing areas, as long as that's also our meal break area and our new training room, because we had to lose our training room to another space, which I'll get to in a second. And just like I said, we don't have amenities and insufficient locker space. There is no break room, and that's important because we are a 24/7 operation. It should be noted that during COVID, a lot of our businesses that were also open 24/7 shut down and no longer operate on a 24/7 basis. So if officers need to, for lack of a better term, brown bag it, they have to bring their own food and keep it somewhere. If it's something that requires refrigeration, now we're storing it in headquarters. They have to come into headquarters to sit down and eat, where they normally would have been able to eat at an establishment. The restroom areas is another problem for officers. We have very confined spaces for our restrooms and our facilities. So when those officers on a midnight tour or in the late evening need to use the facilities, it's very restricted because we don't have any other establishments to be able to use the facilities. Next slide, please. Our building systems are also in disrepair, just like DFD. We have an inadequate HVAC system. Several offices during the summer have to put in window ACs in order to keep the building cool. And in various parts of the season, you're going to get a different temperature in various offices. In one office, it could be freezing. In the next, it could be the Sahara Desert. It's not consistent. So it's something that needs to be replaced. We have a failing plumbing system with frequent backup into our cell areas. So even when we do have prisoners and we need to maintain them in a cell, if we have a plumbing system that backs up, we can no longer house our arrestees there. And that creates a problem for where to process and how to house them, because there are compliancy regulations that we need to adhere to. There's a rodent infestation surrounding our headquarters, which is problematic and it needs to be corrected. Our roof leaks in multiple areas of the building. Combined with those roof leaks and our inadequate plumbing, we have conditions that could possibly damage our newly renovated IT room, which cost close to $1 million to renovate. And we actually had a potential leak, which was thankfully corrected by our Director of Environmental Services, with safeguards with trays to divert water away from that brand new equipment. Our functionality in space, like I said, our prisoners cannot be brought into a sally port entrance. Our property and storage areas that are indoor are at maximum capacity, which forced us to have to add to our outdoor storage, which is not ideal. And our filing cabinets are placed throughout common areas of the building. If you came into headquarters, you can see the picture right in front of you. It covers up our very beautiful and what we're proud of our history in our museum that's placed on our second floor. Those are actually working filing cabinets. Any cabinet that you see that's in common space is actually currently being used. These are some other pictures of spaces that depict certain problems for the police department. As you can see, we go back to that. As you can see, there's some, plenty of issues there that can be corrected, and just to show some of the cramping that goes on, and we're using common areas in order for storage, which is a problem for us. We don't want ability for actors to have access to certain areas or certain tools to be used against officers, and it's just not proper placement of that type of equipment. Our future needs. Actually, there's something that should be mentioned. Our department has become very gender diverse, and we're looking to increase that diversity. And currently within the department, we don't have a proper space for our female officers. Just before, I had mentioned the fact that we had lost our training room. Our training room was used at least twice a year for our in-service trainings, and then it's used throughout the year for multiple reasons to do specific training on officers that was in person. Since COVID, we were unable to do that because of the restrictions, which hindered our ability to properly train our officers, and we had to go to a remote system. And when we do remote learning or virtual learning, we're very limited to the amount of equipment that we have to be able to use to train those officers. So if we have, let's just say for round numbers, 20 officers that need to be trained, and we only have 5 computers, now we have to manage how we can train those officers on those 5 computers while still being able to process reports and everyday work that gets generated throughout the day. What we're using as our female locker room it's not sufficient, and it's not adequate, and it's not the same as what our male officers have. The room is not adjacent to a bathroom right now, so female officers have to dress in one space and then use the facilities in another across the hall, and that's just not adequate for our female officers. We'd like to have an adequate space that is appropriate for everybody here, and that can be accomplished by having a larger and more modern facility, and actually has the right space where we need it. Property storage is currently a major issue, like I said before. It needs to be abated to meet future needs.
Okay, so I'm going to just touch on what's being proposed here in this municipal complex from a public safety end, from where fire department, police department, and OEM will be. Go to the next one, RJ. That's an overall rendering of one of the options right now. Again, this is still in the early phases where we are going out to the public for public input of what they want in the building. These designs, as I'll talk a little bit later, there will be a risk assessment being done on it very soon from a public safety end. On this page here, as you see, Office of Emergency Management, OEM storage. It's a 118,700 square foot area for the trucks, for the storage area, for plows. We're going from 0 for OEM. OEM is going from 0 square feet of having its own emergency operations center, a large storage area. So it's a huge increase, and that would be on the east side of the building. We go to the next page. Fire headquarters, okay, at 30,000 square feet, will be on the south end of the building of the square block on 15th Street, with the proper bays that will allow for large enough fire engines and fire trucks to be able to go in and out according to proper state and national standards right now. And the next one, the PD headquarters, which will sit at the 2nd and 3rd floor of the building, 31,100 square feet, which is a 40% increase in square footage. We have this building freestanding with a oversized parking lot to the north of us, north of the actual building currently, and is actually 40% less square footage for service in our current building. I call this the building of walls. You walk in and everywhere there's a left or right turn in here in One Police Plaza, where we are tonight, because again, reminder from earlier, this was a medical arts building with small doctor and exam rooms, not a police headquarters. We go to the next one. OEMs for their operations center up on the 4th floor is going to have 9,000 square feet just for the operations center, where we're going to have computers, mapping services, conference rooms. Again, that is up from zero. And I want to reiterate about the most important thing that will be in this new complex is a communication center. Bringing that police, fire, OEM, EMS, 911 operators into one location. First of all, it's going to limit the amount of cost for having 4 or 5 different dispatch areas for the Public Safety Division of Hoboken. It's going to be in one room. And this also creates areas for multi-use training centers, multi-use conference areas where police, fire, OEM do not need all separate conference rooms, separate training rooms. And it's going to be consolidation, which is really going to work, bring public safety working together. Go to the next slide. As we talk about the co-location of municipal services, as I've been saying, that third one underneath operational efficiencies, that emergency operations center. So you have a communication center and an emergency operations center where we're going to be able to have planning conferences when we have, not if, when we have the future storms, whether it's a hurricane, whether it's a snowstorm that's coming in, whether there's some unexpected trend that goes on in public safety that we don't see right now. There's some bad things going on around the world. Bringing all the services in one building to be able to meet, plan, it's going to bring something that's so proficient and much more rapid. And that enhances the safety of our residents and visitors of Hoboken. If Chief Aguirre, Chief Peston wants to add anything about the co-locating. What did I cover everything?
I think you covered
it.
Okay.
On the next page, so our risk assessments. This is a key part. In the couple of public sessions I've been involved in regarding this is what is the risk of having public safety facilities with multi-use? So I take you to Port Authority, which is a large interstate agency with thousands of police officers. They have main headquarters in Journal Square, which has offices, a bus depot, taxi livery stands, and a train station underneath. And they also have Penn Station in New York City, where they have a headquarters, where they have one of the largest bus depots in the world. So these type of multi-use have already been utilized. There's been assessments done on them. They've been proven to be safe. A freestanding police or fire building does not mean it is safer, okay? Without even going into risks, we constantly do risk assessment. We learned risk assessment when we were fortunate enough to have Super Bowl here in January of 2014. And there was 2 years of planning that each week for 2 years, we would go out to the Meadowlands, and Colonel Setnar, who's now the head of Port Authority, who's colonel of the state police at the time, was in charge of the Super Bowl operations. And we talked about risk assessments for critical infrastructures. And that brought that mindset into states, counties, and right down to the municipal ends. And we're doing that today with this. Again, no final plan has been put in place. I've had multiple talks with the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office as recent as this past Thursday, where their new critical infrastructure coordinator, who has an expertise in doing these assessments of properties and sites, they usually do assessments of buildings that are already standing. They are actually going to do an assessment of our plans. So if they see any deficiencies, we're going to be able to make those amendments before we have anything even finalized. So we are very far ahead, but I always thank it that we had Super Bowl here some 8 years ago to put that system in place right down to the local level. We go to next. We're now going to go. We've been at this for about 30, 35 minutes. We're going to go into a deeper discussion, and feel free to ask any one of us any fire, police, OEM related public safety issues regarding current state of affairs and where we're hoping to be. Thank you.
So if you want to ask a question to any of the public safety directors, please raise your hand using the feature in Zoom, and I will unmute you and you will be able to speak to them. I'm going to go with Paul Presenzano first because he had his hand up.
How you doing, everybody? Thank you for that presentation. I have a couple quick, I wanted to say something, then I have a quick question for you, Director Ferrante. The project doesn't have the 6 votes that they need to bond. Ramos, DeFusco, Fisher, and Giattino, I think, opposed the project. So I think that's the first thing we need to understand here. But the city's already assuming that the project's happening. So Director Ferrante, can you tell me or tell us why the taxpayers should pay 192 million for this project? I'm trying to figure it out. I know you're pushing in the public safety, but of that 192 million, there's a big portion of what the three of you represent here.
Well, first off, we're in early goings of public meetings and public input and us coming out to the public about these facilities. Tonight's about public safety. We've discussed financing at the last one where we had Director Gonzalez, Director Sharp was there, Director Stratton. We're going to have future ones with that. The reason why we're confident of it, this is something that is needed. There's a mandate that a Department of Public Works building needs to be put into place. And this was Director Gonzalez's view and vision that if we need to put the Department of Public Works building in place, we have a chance to save the city many millions of what we're pouring in. I'll call One Police Plaza and 201 Jefferson Street money pits. The amount of money that's being put in to keep these buildings surviving each year. As far as what the council votes will go, I'm not a legislator. I don't sit on the council. I'm sure that'll come up in future meetings. And when we get to that point where it's brought before a city council, possibly, I don't know if that would be in the near future or later. But this here tonight is our presentation about the public safety, current state of affairs, where we need to go, and what would be in this concept. As you state, $192 million. That is a top end dollar amount that was given at the last public session by Director Gonzalez, with there being 4 different options. And we're just going to touch on at the end because the three of us sitting here, we're not about bringing which options. Is it going to be a basketball court or a pool or all of the above? There was meetings for that, and there's going to be further meetings for that. And there's a survey that's ongoing that closes out tomorrow at 8 p.m. But 192 million, it was a highest end price. And as was discussed in that last meeting, there's multiple ways to get to that $192 million cost. And I think one of the narratives to try to strike this, any negatives at this without just diving into the public input and going in the exchange, is that this is the same situation as the high school situation. This is nowhere the same type of process as the high school situation. We're at the phase of bringing it out to the public. There's been several meetings that I've been involved in, and there's going to be more. So we're in the very early going. And again, public safety portion tonight, let's hit on that. I'm sure there's going to be many more chances of meetings to talk about how this building could be financed, and it'll be left to the city council chambers of if the city council is going to pass anything and what they're going to pass. But I think we should try to keep the questions to public safety end. But I appreciate your comments, Paul. You know, we've discussed many things even at the last meeting, but I definitely understand your concerns.
So okay. One last thing, I muted myself because my son's in the background. So the one question I do have, you guys threw a bunch of numbers up there, and sorry to go back to the numbers, but it's all, I mean, you guys put stuff out there, what it costs to renovate, to do historicals and stuff like that. And I took those numbers and kind of just did a quick, I mean, basic math that we all can do. And those numbers are pretty, I mean, they're reasonable. They're not considered crazy from what I can see. So my question is, why, if we've been pouring all the money into the facilities that we have, why didn't we just do these upgrades 4 or 5 years ago or whenever we needed to get along those lines? That would be, that's why I'm confused. I mean, I understand all the great things you want to add to the city and everything else, and we could go on for hours on it, but just looking even at your numbers in the presentation, they look digestible versus some of the other things that we're seeing. So I'm just wondering, could we do something to, with the current, what's existing, instead of moving everything all up north?
I think the two things, first of all, the dollar amounts you saw up there are annual costs that are costing in the millions. We have outgrown the One Police Plaza. We have also have a building that our fire headquarters at, that again is 115 years old, and you, because of the design of the building, can't even bring it up to current state or federal standard. So millions per year, 2 money pits, with a chance to move to a newer facility because a DPW site has to be built. I think it was a great vision by Director Gonzalez and Mayor Bala's administration. That's where all the expenses here, from IT upgrades to parking lot upgrades to FD with the damages post Sandy and within the last few years, these all go before the city council, have been discussed, and we've gone there for many 6- and 7-digit expenditures, and it's an annual cost. And if you have a brand new building, I think those costs will be eliminated.
So we're going to move on to William Quinn. Ask you to unmute.
Hi. I guess my question is really just about the geography. And Director Ferranti, you mentioned response times a little bit in your comments, but I just wonder, I live in the southern part of town on 1st Street, and if the new complex is going to be up on 14th Street, how much longer is it going to take a police car to get down to the southern part of town as opposed to your current location on Hudson Street? And the same thing with the fire trucks. I mean, are people going to suffer from not getting the kind of responses that they're accustomed to and that we need?
I could answer that for you, Mr. Quinn.
Sure.
So we don't respond from police headquarters. So when we deploy our patrols, they're placed in areas obviously where we have higher crime or where they need to be addressing certain police issues, but we don't respond from headquarters. So the response times are not going to change regardless of where police headquarters is, unless there's some sort of major event that requires anybody that's in headquarters to leave from headquarters. But that emergency could happen anywhere in the city, let's just say during the day or you know, whatever time. But our patrols are always around the entire city, so it varies wherever the nearest police vehicle is to be able to respond to that emergency. So I don't see where the location of our headquarters affecting the response time of a similar event.
Well, how about fire department?
It's very similar with the fire department. I currently have 4 firehouses. One in your district would be Observer Highway, and they're not moving. The only thing that would move is my battalion chief, the tour commander, and the ladder truck and engine company stationed at Observer Highway, the engine company stationed at 801 Clinton Street are not moving. If anything, the new facility gives me the ability to add another fire apparatus to respond. So sorry about that. It'll have a positive effect on response times in the southwest section of Hoboken because I'll have the ability to add a fire truck there. I love my daughters, I do.
Well, would you guys like to have the option to retain your current properties in some basis, like still have some police presence on 106 Hudson Street, even if it's not the headquarters, and some fire presence on, you know, Jefferson Street, even if it's not the headquarters? Or are these, you know, properties just going to end up getting commercially developed? I mean, is there a chance of keeping them in some form?
If the police headquarters moves, new state mandates forces any police sub precincts to have a lot of certain equipment and staffing in, which actually becomes more costly and brings less deployment because then you have to staff it with officers. Because we're always asked, can we have a substation uptown? Can we have a substation down the west side of Hoboken? Under the current mandates, it's too costly and it takes officers off the streets. So if we are to move from this location to a 15th Street facility, this would not be a police precinct. As far as the FD, Chief Esmo, would be your plan with the 201?
If in fact we get the new facility, fire headquarters would honestly no longer be needed. It would be a very expensive place for us to store equipment. Currently, we use it for the Fire Prevention Bureau, which would be relocated. My apparatus maintenance, which would be relocated. Apparatus storage, because for each responding unit, I have an additional spare truck for when a frontline piece goes out on for scheduled maintenance. I wouldn't need to store that. Honestly, I just wouldn't need the facility. I mean, I'll keep it if you want. And, you know, I'll store my spare hose there, but as far as being of any use to me, it really is at 8,000 square feet. It's honestly, it's just too small for me to do anything with it other than Fire Prevention Bureau in my office. I mean, that's the administrative offices run out of there, and Fire Prevention Bureau, apparatus maintenance, and I have some storage there. But because it floods so consistently, I can't store anything on the floors. Everything's got to be elevated, so I lose 1/3 of my space there. The building's obsolete. I really have no use for it if we get a new facility.
Thank you. Very good questions, Mr. Quinn. Thank you.
So I'm going to ask Terry Pearl to unmute. Just for the sake of time, could people please keep their questions to one question?
Hi, I actually live uptown, very close to where this facility is being proposed. And I'd like to know what kind of studies you've done to look at traffic and infrastructure and the flow of things uptown for this new facility. Public safety involves a lot more than building new facilities for you. It involves making sure that your residents can drive safely, can get out of their homes and residences and get onto the streets. The corner of 15th and 14th and Willow are terrible, and they back up along 15th Street and 14th Street, I'm sorry, 15th Street on a regular basis. I don't understand how you think all these trucks, fire trucks, and the storage facilities that you're proposing, how are those cars and trucks going to get in and out of your facility without making it worse? Also, the infrastructure appears terrible. Our water main has broken twice, causing sewage to flow into the basement of our building and the first floor of our building. So how are you going to make sure that your new facility doesn't add to all of those terrible things?
I'm going to first answer the second part of that question. So with the rebuild by design project that's already underway in Hoboken, the $230 million flood resiliency project, in conjunction with the Northwest Park and new water mains, is going to bring a much safer and better infrastructure for uptown Hoboken. And it's going to be very resilient to flooding. Once that's complete in the next couple of years, that's another project that needs to be completed by 2024. So that is why Director Gonzalez, Director Stratton feel this is going to be one of the safest areas in town as far as flooding. As far as dealing with extra traffic from police or fire engines, I turn to either Chief Aguilar or Chief Peskin.
As far as fire trucks responding to and responding from, there'll be no increase. Like if there's an alarm activation on 15th and Willow, we're going there regardless of where we start from. We'll respond from 13th and Washington Street, or we'll respond from 1501, the new complex. There'll be no increase in fire traffic there. If anything, the southwest section of town will be better represented, and response times will be positively affected. I don't see my fire trucks adding anything that we don't already provide there.
I've had some public safety, pedestrian safety questions and concerns with traffic with having a fire headquarters. If you look right now, it's right on Washington Street, so it pulls out right where there are 3 bars and restaurants across the street. We've looked at Marin Boulevard, Jersey City, which is their largest fire headquarters in their city. It's right across from Newport Mall's parking lot. There's a school a block away. We've looked at New York City that has fire headquarters right in the middle of cities, next to bars, next to schools. The way it's going to be designed on the outside, there's going to be 2 positive enhancements there. It's going to be as pedestrian safe as possible with clear sight lines. And I talked to a business owner at our last public meeting about that condition of 15th Street. Just try to cross the street, never mind drive on it. That is going to be a well-designed and flat road that's going to make it much safer and better for traveling, whether you're doing it by car, truck, bicycle, or on foot. So I think we're going to be in a lot better area in pedestrian safety matters and traffic matters.
Right. And I could add to the fact that I think once there is a redesign of the area, it's going to improve traffic. Similar to how we respond right now, Hudson Street backs up terribly. Anywhere after 3 o'clock, getting a police vehicle in and out of here is no easy task, especially around Hudson Place. So moving our headquarters to a larger space geographically, I think we're going to have that's actually newly redesigned, is going to improve our ability to get in and out of that space. And it's also, I think, going to improve it for residents that live in the area as well.
If we can do like maybe 2 or 3 more, RJ, so we have the 7 o'clock deadline.
Sure, yeah, let's see if we can get a few more.
If we go for your space, it's fine, but we'll try to do at least 2 or 3 more.
Okay, let's go to Jane Porges. Ask her to unmute.
Hello, thank you. Good evening. I do not have so much a question, but just a couple of comments that I hope will move things along and make things a little bit more transparent and easier to digest in the future. There's no doubt in my mind that upgraded facilities are needed. And no one mentioned the pandemic, which, you know, I served at City Hall on the emergency response team for 14 months. So sitting in the, you know, I don't know when that conference room was created, but, you know, it was pretty low end, a low end operation. But we did, you know, everybody pulled together. I have 2 comments. One is about risk assessment and the idea of co-locating all of these vital services. And I mentioned this in a prior meeting. And I said, what are the concerns or risks? And the quick answer was, there are none. And then subsequently, the team came back and said, yes, we need to assess. I mean, it's clear we need to assess. And I think that the real solution is that we cannot just put this ham sandwich in front of the public and say, this is it, this is the solution. And you gentlemen sit here and listen to all the objections and have to defend this single solution. What we need is a more generous look at what the options are so that we can choose and really pick from a menu of practical ideas that take into consideration traffic, location, you know, all of your concerns about where you need certain operations and services, but also how do we really consider the fact that putting everything in one darn place. I mean, you don't have to need to be a genius to know that there's risk. There's risk. There has to be some contingency. So I just think the way to address this is to look at some options and not present the all or nothing at all. It's just, it's going to set everybody up for, you know, continued discourse instead of coming to, you know, an understanding and an accommodation to get this thing off the ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jane.
Okay, we can move on to Alan Wellner.
Good evening, Alan.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen, for doing this. I've been in Hoboken for 40 years, downtown. The fire department situation is better than it has ever been, thank God. When I got into Hoboken, dozens of people were dying at a time in those fires. We've come a long way. When Director Ferranti was police chief, I thought personally, living down there in that neighborhood, that the cops were better than they ever were, more responsive, really a tremendous upgrade for what had gone before. What I'm concerned about is that I see no cops on the street. Chief Aguiar, I wish you the very, very best of luck. It's a tough job, but I'd like you to know that most of us, I would say all of us, see no cops on the street. Certainly no real presence. And weekends down there, or any day of the week, just brings a tremendous amount of folks down there. And we need a police presence in that neighborhood. And this town has grown so much that we need a visible police presence all over town. Precincts that are visible to people in our neighborhoods. And to concentrate most of these operations in the northwest corner just does not seem to be a helpful thing. We need to see cops on the street. And I really hope that we can restore that kind of friendly, observant presence. You know, things have been going in one way for years now. I hope to see them restored to a more neighborly and neighborhood-based system. Thank you, gentlemen. Very much appreciate your
Thank you, Alan.
your under.
Hi, Director Barry.
Hey, how are you?
So my comment is about the proposed location, which is currently a flood zone. I know Rebuild by Design is supposed to take care of that, but until we see it actually function, I don't believe it. And I really want to go on record saying that the current Hudson Street location doesn't flood, and that area, that location, the parking lot should be built out, and you can have a world-class facility for public safety and have a proper police station location in that area there with a lot of creativity. And thank you for everyone for your service.
Thank you very much, Barry. We do one more, Roger?
Sure, we have one more hand up, so that's perfect. Go to Manuel Rivera.
Hello, Manuel. You off? Looks like you disconnected. Maybe he's off already.
Yeah, can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've heard your presentation and I've heard the ones before in the bigger scope of the complex. Again, as a born and raised Hobokenite, I've seen everything. And I, like the gentleman who spoke before, Mr. Allen, I remember the police patrols when I used to work on First Street. The police, community police, would come every morning or every afternoon, walk through my office and wave or come in, you okay? And we need more of that. I just wanted to state that, and I'm sure it's coming at some point. But in regards to the facility, again, everything has to be all in one place, which is okay because I see the necessity to have one central command, but I also see the danger as the public aspect or the municipal aspect where they want to put seniors in there, they want to put basketball courts, they want to put a pool. How is that all going to mesh with your serious jobs that you have to do there? That is my point. I know that you're not politicians, you don't have to do that part, but help me out and help the people out knowing that, you know, you're going to do your utmost to try to keep it for you guys, for the upgrade of the police, the firemen, EMS. And also I was wondering, is there going to be a station for the EMS, which is the ambulance corps? Are they going to go up there or are they private? I don't know that either. So if you could help us out with that, and I appreciate your time, and I know the time is short, so I appreciate.
Yeah, great questions and comments, Manuel. So first off, as far as the blending of having police fire services in a multi-use building, the square block that is there, it's a very large area. We're on. Currently, the PD sits on about 9 to 10 lots. The FD headquarters sits on about 3 to 4 lots. This is many more times larger than that. The fire entrance and exits for that building are going to be made in the safest way under the current mandates, which is going to create a much safer entrance and exit from our fire trucks. The police building's actually going to have a separate entrance that people from the public could just wander into the police building into restricted areas. There's going to be areas in that building that'll be restricted from even other city services, like firefighters and OEM won't be able to walk into certain areas because there are confidential areas in a police building that only certain police officers can go into. So the building is going to be designed in a way that there's going to be safe entrances and egress for police also. And I know we'd mentioned the word Sally Port. When someone is brought under arrest or a crime victim or a juvenile, where currently they're brought and walked on a sidewalk for public view because this building does not have a Sally Port and cannot have a Sally Port built. A Sally Port is a garage entrance where police vehicles will come into that facility. No one in that area, whether they reside in the area, attend business there, will see people that are under arrest or crime victims or crime witnesses or juveniles. They're going to be brought directly into the building, into areas that are restricted just for police access. So that is going to be a very safe way that that building is entered.
And just to add to that, from my understanding, that even the garage space is going to be sectioned off for specific public safety entities. So the general public won't be able to just drive up and be adjacent or next to that Sally Port or anywhere where the police vehicles or I believe even the FD vehicles are going to be stored. So again, it's proper planning and the use of the risk assessments that we're going to be able to design a building that's going to be safe for all those shared services in one complex.
And just adding more to that, these risk assessments. So what will happen is over the next couple of weeks, we'll be talking to the critical infrastructure coordinator for Hudson County Prosecutor's Office. That person works with the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force and Homeland Security, and they look at all types of threats of what this type of complex can bring. There are always risks, okay? And I think anybody that's heard me in a meetings would never hear me say, oh, there's no risk, there's no threat. There is always threats. What we base on is the level of threat. And we get that from a lot of information that's gathered by the New Jersey State Police Fusion Center, which is a combination of Homeland Security, FBI, County Prosecutor's Office liaisons. And that information is shared in such a great way since Super Bowl. It started post 9/11, but it really increased in New Jersey post Super Bowl, where any level of threats is going to be relayed to us. And again, there's always threats for any building that's standing in a New York City metropolitan area. We're one of the largest metropolitan area in the world. We are part of that, being just a mile and a half away from ground zero of 9/11. So there's always assessments being done on that area. So you also talk about the different designs that people want. That's why we're still at this public input and output stage where there's this survey. RJ, if you want to just pull that page up, if you're able to. So there is Take the Survey. You can click on that link that's on the city site. You can go to www.hobokenNJ.gov in the Hoboken Municipal Complex. That is going to be online until 8 p.m. tomorrow night. And I would believe sometime next week, we're all going to get the results of answers to that survey. And this public process is not over. I think that is the key thing that I would like people to hear, that we're at the beginning stages. This is not something that we're ready to, okay, let's take it to a council vote or let's go another route and let's break ground. We are far from that. And that's why we're having these meetings, and we're trying to get the input from you, and we're trying to give our stances so that you understand what we need. So thank you, everybody. If we just go back to our screen, Audrey. I thank everybody that tuned in on here tonight. I believe this will probably be uploaded at some point to our City of Hoboken YouTube page, hopefully in the next couple of days. Complete the survey if you haven't. Please give the input, and please talk to your neighbors. We will have other public settings, whether online or in person. And let's hope we make for a safer city for our residents, our visitors, and our business owners. I thank you. I thank Chief Aguiar, Chief Peskins for also being here tonight and for their time.
I just want to thank everybody for tuning in and for everybody's questions and comments. They're duly noted, and we're working our best to make the city safe for everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And just as a sidebar, I recognize that people are concerned about putting all the fire resources in one place. We currently have 3 fully functioning firehouses that aren't going to change. So response times are not going to be adversely affected. We're just adding 2. We're gaining the ability to grow. Thank you again.